After the end of World War II, the world was split into two, East and West. This marked the beginning of the era called the Cold War.
What a thrill, with darkness and silence through the night. What a thrill, I'm searching and I'll melt into you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme. I give my life, not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no one else. Crime, it's the way I fly to you. I'm still in a dream, snake eater. Someday you go through the rain, and someday you feed on a tree frog. It's ordeal, the trial to survive for the day we see new light. I give my life, not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no one else. Crime, it's the way I fly to you. I'm still in a dream, snake eater. I'm still in a dream, snake eater.
When thinking of art, there are many things that come to mind. Paintings, sculptures, music, and film are some mediums of what many people agree to be art. However, one medium that is not as often grouped in with the others is video games. Even the iconic late film critic Roger Ebert came to the ultimate conclusion that no one in or out of the field has ever been able to cite a game worthy of comparison with the great poets, filmmakers, and novelists. Even though I disagree, I do respect Ebert's thoughts on the matter, and it made me start to ask myself questions about video games as art. Specifically, if I had to pick one video game to be presented as a work of art, what would it be? If someone wanted to experience art from a video game, what should they play? There are many games out there that would be great contenders for this topic, but there is one that stands out above the rest in my eyes. Or should I say I. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is the one game that I think everybody should experience at least once. Its gameplay, characters, and story that develops along the way elevates it from a bunch of code on a screen to an impressive work of art. It may sound weird to only play one game from a franchise, especially since it's the third in the series. Well, actually, it's the 9th in the series, but it's the first game to take place chronologically, so you don't have to play the other ones to enjoy it. I won't go too into detail with the story, because really, I want people to be able to experience it for themselves. However, the game is over a decade old, so there will be some spoilers in this video. If you really don't want to be spoiled, then I suggest leaving and then coming back when you're ready. The story takes place in 1964 during the height of the Cold War. You play as Naked Snake, a soldier from a special forces unit called Fox. His mission is to infiltrate Russian territory in order to accomplish two things: destroy a mobile nuclear weapon called the Shagohod, and to kill his former mentor, Boss, who defected to the Soviet Union. During this whole ordeal, Snake is completely by himself. He only has his radio to talk with his companions. Food, weapons, and supplies are all things that he needs to scavenge for himself. This creates a feeling of isolation, and often I found myself holding my breath as I hid away from the guards, knowing that I was all alone. There's actually a spy hidden amongst the Russians called Eva. Her helpfulness and support that she gives to Snake makes the thought of her getting caught very worrying, and in the cutscenes you're hoping that she doesn't get found out. This game feels like one big homage to the classic James Bond films, and it's apparent with all of its elements of secret agents, spies, romance, and double-crossing. If those aspects didn't make it apparent, then the opening credits with the iconic Snake Eater theme song playing in the background will. When comparing the openings to Snake Eater with just about any of the Bond films, it's apparent where the game's director, Hideo Kojima, took inspiration from. I love it. It immediately creates a feel about the game that just screams classic. Even the characters themselves make references to the films.
I don't like those movies. Real spies are nothing like James Bond. It's pure fantasy.
What exactly don't you like about James Bond? I mean, is it the fantastic gadgets, the cars, the guns?
Major,
Snake, wouldn't you like to have a gun shaped like a pen?
what good is a pen gonna do me in the jungle? I'd look like a fool.
Then what about a snake-shaped gun? You could make it look like you're grappling with a giant snake and then get a shot in on the enemy while they're distracted.
Okay, now you're being ridiculous.
Along with the movie inspiration, Snake Eater recontextualizes historical events in order to build its own narrative. That's another thing that I appreciate. The game gives integrity to its players by not shoving every little piece of exposition in their face. Sure, the exposition's there, but I left this game having more questions than answers, in a good way. The phrase, show, don't tell, comes to mind. It's okay to have questions and not always all the answers. That's what keeps things interesting. For example, it's explicitly stated that the boss defected to the Russians, but through subtle hints and interactions between her and other characters, things might not seem so black and white. While the story is captivating, a game can't very well be a game without, of course, the gameplay, and what Snake Eater has to offer is excellent. Snake Eater emphasizes stealth above all else. The jungle that you spend most of your time in is just filled with hiding places and wildlife. The game rewards you for being stealthy by making the areas much easier by not getting noticed. However, being stealthy in of itself can be pretty difficult at times. The creatures that you can find aren't just for show either, as you're gonna need to be eating every now and again to heal and raise your stamina bar. There are no conventional healing items either, as Snake's health is constantly regenerating, just at various speeds. If he's full, his health will increase faster. If he's hurt, his healing will be hindered until you take care of the issue, which may be anything from a cut to a bullet wound. Snake also has to use different types of camouflage that is suited for every environment that he's in. Enemy soldiers will have a harder time finding you if you're blended into the surroundings, but wearing the wrong camo could have you ending up like a snake on the Barbie. Trying to be super sneaky can be tense as you are planning out what you're going to do in your head to get through the zones. One of the most effective ways is using CQC to quietly take down enemies. You don't have to kill anybody either. If you want, you can knock people out or tranquilize them to get by. Killing people isn't always required, but it does feel necessary sometimes as enemies just keep flooding your position looking for you. The game leaves it up to you whether or not you want to do it or not. For a game that came out in 2004, the amount of player choice and depth is astonishing. While there's no choice in how the story plays out, it's how you get there where the choices shine. I was amazed at just how many little things there are. For example, there are several boss fights throughout the game. You can take the straightforward route and just gun them down, or you can think outside the box for some alternative ways to defeat them. The game shows you early on that you can be creative with how you play by showing that you can shoot a beehive to clear out enemies on a bridge. The creativity is exemplified the most with the End boss fight. The End is a legendary sniper who is over 100 years old and is so in tune with nature that he breathes through photosynthesis. As I mentioned earlier, you can fight him guns blazing, but that is only one of many ways to defeat him. You can choose to drain his stamina bar by shooting him with the tranquilizer to get his weapon, which is very useful, but another and less obvious way to beat him is really crazy. If you save the game during his boss battle and wait at least a week, a secret cutscene will play where he dies of old age. I've never heard of beating a boss in this kind of way before, and it just blows my mind. Imagine playing Sonic and while you're fighting Dr. Eggman, he dies from a heart attack.
Heart attack!
Seeing all these little details on a first playthrough might not be obvious though, and that's totally okay. It just encourages repeat playthroughs, something that a game should do. Just like with a work of art, it begs for repeat viewings with its positive qualities. While yes, this game can be enjoyed from repeat playthroughs, there's nothing like experiencing it for the first time. The quality of the cutscenes along with the dramatic spectacle of it all really makes it feel like a movie. You even have the option to take a first-person view of Snake in some cutscenes, which may show several Easter eggs or hints that you can see. or you can just turn Snake into a peeping Tom.
Tasty.
That being said though, the controls and feel of the game do take some getting used to. Not only does this make sense outside the game, because of course it takes time getting used to something that you've never played before, but starting out sloppy and unfamiliar with how you play also works from a narrative standpoint. In future iterations of Metal Gear, Naked Snake is revered as a legendary warrior, but here it's obvious that he's not at that point yet. He's not the weakest, but he gets bested by many of the villains and even gets stomped by the very person who trained him. An unrelated but fun fact about the boss is that she actually has the same voice actor as Pearl from SpongeBob.
Give me a K-R-U! Give me a S-T-Y! Krusty Krab! Krusty Krab!
Now that's what I call talent!
This gives Snake that underdog feel, which makes you want to root for him and see him complete his mission. He definitely still has a lot to learn, and so do you as a player. Together, you go on a journey and get better and better as the game goes on. By the end of the mission, you're both hardened and more experienced than what you were in the beginning, and are deserving of the title, Big Boss. Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of those games that I've played and thought, wow, I've never experienced anything like that before. We all have games that have had that effect on us, but I'm just saying this in case you've never had that connection with a game before. This might be that one. Even if you go through it having felt nothing like what I've just described, I bet that you will at least come out of it knowing that you've never climbed a ladder that cool before. If you know, you know, and if you don't, you can find out if you play. It's a shame that someone as influential as Robert Ebert left this world so adamant on his position about video games and art, especially having not played Metal Gear, which is one of the only video games that actually feels like a movie with its long cutscenes. If a video game contains all the elements of a film while adding an interactive perspective to it, then I don't see how video games can't be art. Sure, there are a ton of video games that may seem crude and simple-minded, but there are just as many and even more pieces of other art like that as well. And even then, aren't those lesser pieces just as artistic in their own way? Just like with any traditional piece of art, video games can move you, teach you, and inspire you in your daily life. As I said before, there are many games that have these qualities, but Metal Gear Solid 3 delivers on all fronts. By the end, I was on the verge of tears reflecting on how the story played out and knowing that my experience was coming to an end. So if you've never played a video game before, or if you just haven't played Metal Gear Solid 3, give it a try. What you find may just surprise you.